All right. So as we get ready to come back, I want to I have to confess something. Confession time. So I have an addiction to toffee, and somebody brought a box in, and not one, not two, 8. So can somebody hide them or eat them? Because if they're still there, I'll eat. I'll self-control when it comes to it. And I had been eating some, and I try not to eat on Sunday mornings. I tend to like to fast, but just tend to. It's something I've always done. But I saw those toffee, man, and Sarah caught me because I had a piece of something in between my teeth. Be sure your sins will find you out. When that's said in Deuteronomy, it's so true. If you somebody will find it out. So we're gonna continue with our 10. One of my favorite, and I know that's kind of weird to have a favorite commandment, but this is one of my favorite about a day off. And who does not like a day off? So when pastor, your day off isn't a Sunday. Your day off is usually a Monday, and sometimes you get another day out. Then you spend time doing your laundry and grocery shopping and running errands and cleaning your house and a couple years ago I was at general conference. So every 2 years the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada has a general conference where last year was in Victoria. Next year it will be in Halifax, and of listening and actually meeting him, a gentleman named Ken Shigematsu, and he's a Japanese pastor in Vancouver, largest churches in Vancouver, and he came and he spoke. He was our speaker for the week or whatever it was, and he talked about the Sabbath. And can I tell you, my Sabbath changed after that. My how I viewed it and what I looked at, how I looked at it, and even the things that I was willing to do and not to do changed. I was with David and I were at a 403 luncheon for pastors, youth pastors in the 403. And Mark Buchanan, is that right? He's a professor at Ambrose. He spoke on. I saw this coming up. I was like, yes, because I've done the research. It's not going to take me super long to do this. So when we talk about the Sabbath, this is what Exodus 28 verse to 11 says. Remember this. Now remember, holy doesn't mean perfect. Holy means set apart. So when something is holy, it means that it is set apart. Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath day to the Lord your God, and neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in the sins in the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the 7th day. And therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Scriptures on Sabbath. There are 154 references in the Bible. And rest, just because that is referenced 508 times. So usually when something's mentioned over 100 times, it might be something that you want to. It's important. Yes, Clem, it's true. It is important. The Sabbath. So as we talk about the Sabbath, so Sabbath wasn't something that happened when the 10 Commandments came down. Sabbath was actually installed at the very beginning the air and the sky and the land and the trees and the animals and people were created, so was Sabbath created. So we think that way because we know it because of the Ten Commandments. But the reality is that it was instituted by God from the beginning. Just like marriage by God. In Exodus 16, there's a story on the man and the quail. So what's happened is the Israelites, they've escaped from Egypt, and they're in the desert, and they've got nothing. They got no food. They've got no water. They're complaining. Surprise. Things aren't going their way, and they're complaining to God. And so God says, that's fine. I'm going to provide for you. I will provide for you. So he sends manna, and he sends partridges. Is that what it is? Quail. Some kind of bird. Yeah. Well, you know, quails and partridges, same thing to me. Just saying. So he sends these birds, and he sends manna, which is like bread from that comes down. And makes a point of saying when you collect on the 6th day, take twice as much, because nothing the 7th day. And so what happens is the Israelites do what they always do. They listen super good, and they wake up on the 7th day and they go look for them to collect. And it becomes an issue, and God's like, what didn't you understand? Right? And so Exodus 16, 29, 30, bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you bread, and is to stay where they are on the 7th day. No one is to go out. So the people rested on the 7th day. Enforced rest. And so the 4th command is different. It's not a command that just kind of suddenly came. It's a reiteration of what God had already planned. Sabbath was not a new idea. The Israelites had not followed before. This was not something, and so it was a reiteration about what God was going to do. Does anybody have Exodus 31, verse 18? I just got to make sure it's the right one. Anybody got it? I want to read it. Okay, Enoch. The other one. Okay. When the tablets were written, it wasn't Moses sitting up there with a chisel and a hammer. Saying it was God himself, by his own finger, had taken 2 tablets, and he had scribbled across what he wanted the Israelites to do. God is invested in your Sabbath. The 10 Commandments weren't something God thought, God inscribed, God carried out. And so just as we need to get rid of all the commands, we need to notice that the 4th one is, again, it's instituted by God, it's written by God, it's important. I think next to the one of taking his name in vain, this is probably the one that gets misused a lot. The Sabbath is a rest practice, not a religious practice. So sometimes you went too far. There we go. The Sabbath is a rest practice, not a religious practice. Sometimes we make God, and we make that is about do's and don'ts. So if I do this and I do this and I do this, then God will bless me. If I don't do this and I don't do this and I don't do this, And because I'm a Christian, I can't do this. And because I'm a Christian, I don't want to do this. And we make it a lot of do's and don'ts. But when we start to break down God, then we have built a religion, and it's not a relationship. Because just like the Ten Commandments, again, it's whether we desire to honor God in this way. So Mark 2, verses 23 to 28, which is not that one. We'll come back to that one. You just stay there. Don't move. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees, what is unlawful on the Sabbath. He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. That's made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." With situations. So when I was in Bible college, I had the privilege or horror, depending on what, kind of like a Dirty Dancing situation where the guests stayed in really nice places and the staff stayed in the leaky roofed rooms, and you did not mix with the $1,000 to stay, and well, you didn't. So we would get this one group from Toronto in the Orthodox Jew area, and so they would bring all the girls would come, and we would play a game which is big, because when women, Jewish women who are Orthodox, when they get married, they shave their heads, and then they hair grows back, but then they're only beautiful to their husbands. They're the only ones that ever get to see their real hair, but they wear wigs. And so we used to, they were pretty, you didn't know, but I know, I'm a sinner. I never said I wasn't. But what Sabbath is Saturday. And so Friday night at sundown, they would begin their Shabbat. And so they would have their meal, the one area, the dining room, where they were only allowed to be in, and the priest would come, or not the priest, well, yes, the priest, the dining room, and he would bless the kitchen, and he would bless, and we had to take fishing line, and we would have a certain that they were only allowed to go into, like they were the only people allowed in that area. And it was, again, blessed by the rabbi. An evening, and then they would come, and they were not allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed. It was they went to serve. It was, if it was fine to be outdoors. If not, they did it where it had been blessed. And but then what would happen is when the Sabbath was done, they would flush the toilets because they weren't allowed to flush the toilet. So what happens when you have a yeah. So inevitably, we would have to run and find plumbers. It was awful. But you would walk into their rooms to deal with some of the plumbing issues that were happening. It's like there was garbage and everything. Just in one day, it was amazing how much garbage these young women could accumulate, and all because they couldn't do this, because that was work. To pick up their clothing was, and I always thought that was a funny thing, because how is a God who okay with chaos? But I thought, what a crazy thing to be ruled by rules. What a crazy thing to be having all kinds of situations that you couldn't do, like even flushing the toilet. And I thought that's a little extreme. I think that's a little that's fine. That's not who I choose to be. But I just found that we often will then make something and we eat. It's like when Eve and Satan are having that conversation, and Satan, and she goes to the point of saying, even if we touch it, we'll die. People are really good at taking something and making it right. So you tell a story, and like, so yeah, so and so they have, and before you know it, the person's in the hospital on life support, expecting to be like dead any minute. And so we tend to take things and we exaggerate the importance of something. And so Sabbath is very important. Don't get me exaggerated. We can make a bunch of rules and we can make it something that is religious and not relationship. When the reality is the reason why God gives us rest, so that you and I have a time to be healthy, so that you and I have a time to simply enjoy. So when we talk about Sabbath, no. All right. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of stone, but of tablets of a human heart. So that the reason why we choose to honor God, the reason why, because it was written on tablets with the finger of God, although very important reason, but because now it is written on our heart. That is within us, that kind of blinks. Just that little gentle reminder that there's something better. And so there are some things that when we're talking about this, that I think there has to be aspect of Sabbath. And so these are a couple of things that now we're there. Yeah, good. Is so on my Sabbath, whichever one I choose, because I actually have 2 days, technically I have 2 days off, I absolutely do nothing. And so before I get to that day of doing absolutely nothing, there are things that I do. I make sure that my errands are done. I make sure that if I'm choosing not to cook, I'm either going to, I know where I'm going to order in, because or I make food the night before, and all I got to do is heat it up. I make sure it isn't done, then I better not have needed anything in the laundry because it's not getting done on my Sabbath. I make sure I have done everything I can so that my house is not falling down disgusting. It's my Sabbath. I spend time in worship on my Sabbath. For most people, Sundays is a part of that. We spend time with others, we spend time worshiping. But I spend time going through things with the Lord. I sometimes I just spend time asking God, we can have a conversation with him that isn't about me asking for anything, but more about me just spending time. And sometimes I dance. It's not pretty. No one likes it but God. I have this big old smoke detector thing in the basement. I live with Sam and Daphne in their basement, in case you guys didn't know. And there's this round thing, and it looks like a camera. It really does. And every once in a while, I wonder, because that would be crazy. As I'm, yeah. Because, yeah, I probably am, because it's like, who told that woman she could dance? Kind of like American Idol was like I don't think I can dance. I just do it. Because I just, that's kind of one of my expressions of just loving the only happens in private. Just saying. It would be a distraction for anyone else to see it. I will not like a textbook or a workbook, but because I actually want to learn about what God has to say. Just do that because it's just time for me. Because sometimes the rest of the week is super busy. Very good. Sometimes it can get a little bit out of control. What I'm doing on that day is things that are life-giving to me. So there are people now, there are people in life, life-sucking people. When you spend time with them, you need a nap after. You just take and take and take. So on my Sabbath day, I don't go anywhere near those kind of people. Okay to say no. When I go on my Sabbath, when I was listening to this gentleman, Ken Shigematsu, talk, he's in Vancouver and he has a boat. So usually on his Sabbath, he takes his boat out and he goes sailing because to him, that is life-giving. That's something around the mall. I get a coffee and I take a walk. Sometimes I go, not right now. Sometimes I just go out and sit outside and just marvel at what I stay in and I watch Netflix. And you can ask Sam. Sometimes he'll see me in the morning and I'm in the, I come down to say goodnight. The exact same position. Sometimes I will have pillows and blankets. I don't do anything that I don't want to. But that doesn't mean that if I don't want to go out and go shopping, that I don't do that. For me, honestly, I hate grocery shopping. I'd rather visit Martin and have him rap on my teeth 1,000,000 times before going to do it. And the reason why I hate grocery shopping is because it's just too much. It's overwhelming. There's too many choices. And I make and then you throw it out and it's like I just wasted. Like I could have put a $10 bill down the toilet. For reason. But I also learned that on the Sabbath it's okay to say no. That if people invite me out, I just need to recharge. It's okay to say, hey, thank you, love you, I'll see you soon, but just not today. Notice of Sabbath, and part of it is when they legislated that everything could be open. Everything was closed on a Sunday. Like not even restaurants. There were only very few restaurants were open on a Sunday. I remember when if you didn't have bread for lunch either, because it wasn't happening. There was nowhere to get bread. And I remember when it changed. And it changed. Because it used to be Sundays were days where people would visit with one another. They would have meals together. They would just spend time in community. And I remember when that changed, that people were like, oh, I got to go grocery shopping, or, you know, maybe I didn't get saved until I was quite a bit older, but in our house, we didn't do homework on Sunday. Your homework was rested. And when I became a pastor, I got away from that. They're a part of my so what questions. Because I got addicted to a busy life, to doing things that constantly kept me busy. 'Cause 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 Are you addicted to a life of busy? Can I tell you what busy is? Busy is nothing more than a car stuck in a isn't going anywhere. Are you not willing to honor God in this? That's for you. Understand that Sabbath is a gift. It's a gift that God has given that you can perform absolutely to your best ability 6 days of the week. But you have to honor him in that. It's just like Jesus. You got to accept him. Do you want to have the blessing of rest in your life? Oh, I'm so tired. I could just rest. I could just rest. Yeah, we'd probably have less heart attacks in the world, less diseases, less failures, less family breakdowns, a whole lot less cranky to rest. So then the question is, what do you have to do? Change. Some of you may be thinking, I already got this. My Sundays, nothing gets done. Good for you. Lucky. No, I'm blessed and I understand that. Like my Sabbath is super easy because it happens on a day whenever I can't play with anyone unless I make plans. There's nobody to make me busy. There's nothing for me much as it's that way. But what about your days? Are you spending time with people? But are you spending time with people who you and fill you? Or are they life sucking? Don't the person. There are times when I'm super needy and I recognize that. But it's my to be life-giving. You know? I love being with my family. Every time they called, it was something that was not good news, something I had to deal with, something I had to pro. So I was at this conference with a bunch of pastors, and I had some really good conversations, but I know that they weren't getting anything out of them. It was only me. I was definitely life sucking at that point. But I've learned in life that I want to be blessed. And I cannot be a blessing if I'm never taking in, if I'm never resting. And there's that could buy that kind of peace, that could buy that kind of calm. So my question is, do you want that blessing? Something he created just for you. Just for you. So that you could be the greatest you can. Those people. The word. And we're going to sing the last song we did again. Nice song. I mean, I love music. Oftentimes I'll be like, oh, that's my favorite song, or that's my favorite song, but I liked this song because it was just such a quiet, gentle song. And it can be super loud, and it can be really powerful. But I learned that as powerful as the love of God is, it's always really quiet. So I think I think the point though is that you just need to get to a place where that place of calm, that place of peace, where God can begin to speak over you, where you are in a place where you can hear his voice, where you can hear his voice as he sings over you. I've shared this how when I'm sick or when I'm scared or when I'm upset, from the time that I can remember being a child, even to as a grown, that my mic is on. There you go. That I'm good. She'll sing, and she'll sing just whatever it is that's in her harmony, and it is the best feeling in the world. And Zephaniah gathered us like a mother gathers her children, and to sing over us. And so as we sing to the Lord, sing it back over you. And then we're going to dismiss, and yeah.